Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you today. I have to admit, it is a cold, rainy day here in East Tennessee, so I'm glad to be indoors for a change. If you happen to be listening to the audio-only portion, that's fine, but I do appreciate it if you would go over to either YouTube, Rumble, or TNN, or TTN, Tube, and you can tell how old I am, right? Give us a like, a share, or subscribe, all those good things that just make it easier for people to find us, just like you did. I had an interesting question. Somebody wanted to know if there is in the Bible a standardized form of worship. And the short answer to that is not really. Okay? We are given many more examples of how not to worship than we actually are for how to worship. I know that sounds a little contradictory, but it isn't. We are actually told more about how not to worship, because worship has a very broad range of ways to do it. I've had conversations with a lot of people over the years about what worship is and what it should look like, and everybody has their own ideas. Okay? Everybody has their own opinion, and that's kind of fine in a way, right? Now, I have to think, all right? I have to think. A lot of people today may not realize, understand, or know what actual biblical worship is. Okay, let me start from that aspect. Real worship is participatory. All right? And what I mean by that, it's much more than simply being in the same room with other people who believe that our Creator is God, right? You have to participate. I just bumped my microphone. I apologize if that came through. You have to participate. Now, some people may consider that listening to praise music is a form of worship. But if doing nothing more than listening to music, maybe you're doing the lift your hands thing, right? Oh, I got to do it this way. You got to lift the hand thing. That's not really participating. That's being entertained. All right. That's just the way it is. Now, of course, we know that after David wrote some of the Psalms that he did, they were being passed along in song form. That's what Psalms are. They were in song form for others to sing, and we actually do see that in the Bible. People singing, small groups or by themselves, they were singing. And it wasn't a form of entertainment. It is a form of worship when you do that. So the question becomes then, is doing nothing more than listening to praise music really worship? Well, if you're only listening for entertainment, no, you're being entertained. You're not worshiping. Okay. Now, if you actually sing, if you lift your voice and therefore you release your spirit, then that is a form of worship. You see, you have to participate. All right? It becomes something different when you actively participate. Now, there are Christian denominations who promote that doing nothing more than going to a church service and hearing a message is worship. But again, if you're not participating, you're simply getting an education, but it's not worship. You know, I've spoken with people who consider that being outside in nature and in creation is worship, but regular listeners know how much I promote getting outside in creation, being part of creation, for a lot of reasons. But unless you're actually intentionally speaking to our Creator, listening to His voice, participating in something that He desires for us to do, as healthy as it may be when you're getting outside, if you're not actively participating in worship as you are out there, you're on a nature walk, you're not worshiping. Think about that. The Bible describes worship in different ways. In Genesis 2:15, for instance, the Lord God took the man, placed him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. Now, the Hebrew word typically used for worship isn't found here. The word cultivate or tend is, and that same word is considered a form of worship. So what we see when Adam was placed in the garden to serve our Creator is it was actually the first way mankind had to participate in worship. Now, there's going to be some people out there who say, well, wait a minute, that's work. Yeah, it is, right? Serving our Creator, doing the things He tells us may be a form of work, but as we do it, it is also a form of worship. In other words, seeing God, serving God the way He wants to be served is worship. In Genesis 22:5, Abraham tells his servants, stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there and worship, and then we'll return. Now, because Abraham was going to take Isaac as a sacrifice, a lot of people, they say, oh, a sacrifice is necessary for worship. No, it's not. It can be part of it, but it's not necessary, especially now. You see, the same word used in that particular verse is the same word that is used when Abraham's servant finds Rebekah in Genesis 24:26. It says he bowed down to worship. No mention of sacrifice in that particular narrative. But there's an interesting verse, well, two verses in 1 Samuel 7, 5, and 6. Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord on your behalf. When they had gathered at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. On that day they fasted, and they confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. And Samuel judged the Israelites at Mizpah. The act of pouring water out, drawing water from the well, participating, and then they pour this water out, it is a form of worship. Water is the most abundant liquid on earth, and it is so important. It is used in this case and in other situations as a form of worship. The water libations during the first and second temple period, for instance, were the same thing. They would pour the water out. It is a form of worship. Let's go back. The first time we see communal or community worship is actually in Exodus 4:31. And they believed, and when they heard the Lord had attended to the Israelites and had seen their affliction, they bowed down and worshiped. This is probably the most consistent form of worship we see in the Bible. And it's even in the book of Maccabees, where an entire group of people choosing not just to bow down, but to actually lay prostrate on the ground in praise. Now, today I really can't see any group of Christians who are dressed in their Sunday best who would go outside, lay on the grass or in the dirt or even in the parking lot, right? They would not do this, they look at it as, oh, that's what the savages would do. But it's exactly biblical. A couple of years ago when Hamas attacked Israel, I said in an episode, if the prime minister, the IDF officers, and all their soldiers would go out and do exactly what the Maccabees did. Just lay down, prostrate themselves, lay on the ground, and have someone pray, that war would have been over in days, not years. You see, our Creator demands active participation in worship. I know a lot of people who think that Bible study is just a simple discussion. It's not really worship. But if you're actively participating, where you're in a study where you're not just listening to someone, but your questions are being asked, answered, ideas are being discussed, that is actively participating, and it is another form of worship. Myra and I have been in homes that we visited, and one in particular, I remember, the man of the house said, "Would you like to sing?" And I thought, well, yeah, we can do that. That would be great. So we would sit and sing. We would discuss biblical matters. That is a form of worship. Worship is not something that is limited to one day a week, and then you forget about it until the next week. Oh, got my dose of God. I'm ready to go for the week. No, you're not. No, you're not. Oh, got my dose of the Spirit. I'm ready to go. I'm good to go. No, you're not. Worship is something so important. It needs to be done often, right? Obedience is better than sacrifice. Well, that comes out of 1 Samuel, I believe. And I encourage you to actively participate. Actively participate. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Actively participate in obedience. Don't allow Satan, or whatever you want to call it, to prevent you from actively participating in worship. You just don't do it. You need to worship, and there's a lot of different ways to do so, and you need to do it often. Now, if you'll notice, I didn't take time to say what we shouldn't be doing, because there's a very long list, but it can be summed up in just a few words found in Deuteronomy. Don't worship the way the pagans do. It's basically that simple. But you do participate in worship the way the Creator wants you to participate. Why do you think the historians talk about James as having the knees of a camel? It was because he was always on his knees in prayer. If you don't have holes in the knees of your Sunday best, chances are you're not doing it right. Being a little facetious there, but not overly facetious there. You get my point, I hope. You need to participate. Participation is not, it needs to be voluntary, but it is mandatory. Participation is mandatory. So the next time you're sitting there and you're listening to whatever praise music you're listening to, are you being entertained or are you participating? Next time you sit and it's fine to sit and listen to a message, but are you participating? Are you hearing what that person's saying? Right? I don't care if it's a priest, pastor, preacher, rabbi, it doesn't matter. Are you actively participating by going, I need to talk to him about this. I don't think what he said matches what's in my Bible. Because if you're not actively participating, you're not worshiping. It's that simple. Okay? Participate in worship the way our Creator wants to be worshiped. He's laid it out. He's laid it out. And I've gone over some, just a very few things here. There is a wide range, but you have to be participating. Just because your grandma said, "Oh, we're going to worship today," yeah. That might be once, but it needs to be done often. Something to think about until next time. And until next time, I wish you many, many blessings, everyone. Have a wonderful few days.